You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always are my good friends.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And A.K. Mike in Texas.
And we're finally all together again. What the heck?
Well, it was really good to be able to hear Jay say, the hills of Texas.
I know, right?
He hasn't really been able to do that right.
Yeah, because it's been, throwing me off. Hi, I'm Jay, your host, and from the and my other guy. What? I know I'm supposed to say something else here.
Yeah, it's a little bit different when you kind of have to run the hosting part, as opposed to just being a co-host. So but I think you guys did a really good job. So
thanks.
Kudos to you. Yeah. So all right. Well, before we get started, how about a word from our sponsors?
3D Aeroventures, adding fun to the RC hobby, one layer at a time.
Feeling weak and powerless? Sounds to me like you need A-Power batteries. When someone needs the best, they always choose the A-Team. A-Power batteries. Get on the web and get yours today.
And we're back to the Park Flyer Podcast. Welcome, everybody. We are kind of getting ready to head out next week, or this week, I guess, when the podcast comes out. I'll be well on my way to California to Best in the West.
Best in the West?
Yeah, that's the jet event. It's the jet rally for the West Coast. So I'll be in the turbine world for a couple of days.
So where are you going to fly your Park Flyer airplanes when you're there?
Actually, we can. So I'm taking the motorhome out there, and then I'll throw a couple of little foamies, and I can just fly them over by the motorhome.
I was ready to say, are you going to be able to dig out some of your turbines because they may be buried? The last time I was checking, they're not like right there, easy to pop out and go.
No, he has Park Flyers. He probably has one or two on top. You don't
well, he has a couple of Park Flyers. In fact, he has his jets easily accessible. His EDF jet is easily accessible, but I know his turbines are not exactly right there to grab and go.
Well, that's not necessarily true. My trailer does have the F-15 sitting.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm taking the F-15, and then I'm sharing a trailer. Barry's going to throw his big F-18 in there, and then he actually wound up picking up a 110-inch Havoc.
Oh.
And so we have to swing by Van Nuys and pick that up on the way out the bus.
I like that, swing by. That sounds like it's right on the way. That does not sound.
It is. It's kind of on the way.
About an inch on the map?
Yes, about an inch on the map. That's about right. So, yeah. But anyway, we get out there. We leave day after tomorrow. And then we head up, and we're going to spend some time up there.
So your overlords let you go, huh?
They did, yeah. So we're good to go.
Fair enough.
So yeah, we're excited about that. We'll give you some update, from there. I'll see if I can,
How long of a drive is that?
About 8 hours or so.
So I was just like to suggest to Barry, if he happens to be listening, to read some sort of book to Mike on the way there, and that way he won't be bored. And,
well, you give Mike a foot massage. That's the nice part about
maybe
driving that Class A.
We can read you the configuration manual for the that thing with the weight thing that you have that has the 3 pucks.
By the way, he got his own. Yeah.
So he's got his own.
Yeah, there was
maybe,
someone.
Yeah, maybe he can configure it while you guys are traveling.
He's probably going to want to use mine and switch all of his stuff, or the stuff that he has in mine. He wants to put it all in his. But
I bet he just gives you his and says, "Here, I want yours."
Yeah, and
then
that may be the case.
Can you swap the
that's
information?
what I would do.
Can you swap the information from that stuff?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not really sure.
Which is why he should be reading the configuration manual when you guys are driving.
That's true.
You can figure that out.
Now, the last time we did this, I took my little headset thing, and we were driving with our headsets on, having a big.
Oh, I remember that.
We're in the car, so it was pretty funny. But I'm excited because they didn't have one last year, and so this year, they're having it. It's a big event. They have some upwards, I think 80 or 90 pilots registered, so it'll be kind of cool.
When's the last time you did anything with your acroplane? Your real acroplane?
You mean my actual extra?
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a while, all summer. When I had COVID, I didn't really fly it, so the guys are actually, some of the guys are jonesing. They're like, "Hey, man, you need to come out and fly with us." So I need to get ready to do that. The big thing that's been taking all my time is my house. We're trying to still build it, so we're getting to the final push, and I've been up there pretty much every day. And
yeah, when you have to make all your own nails and stuff. And
I do. Yeah. I got the little foundry going
plywood, scrounging the country for plywood.
I've been growing my trees.
Yeah. The front 40 is almost done, so we get the porch will be able to be made. So that's good. We got that going for us.
The big thing is the electricity in the house just got turned on this week, so we've been programmed.
So that means you have a real address too.
I do, actually. I got my first Amazon delivery at the address.
Oh, it's official. It's official.
It is official.
I mean, no pictures? Like, that's just rude.
No pictures of the
delivery? The first delivery?
Oh, you know what? I do have a picture. Let me see.
Okay.
I do have a picture,
all right,
I think, and I can send it to Jay to put up there. But I'm pretty sure.
You're gonna have to black out the address, though.
There was no address. You know what? I do have one, and you're right. I will have to black out the address because it's actually on the label. But so my builder ordered my kitchen sink, and they delivered it. And my wife and I are only like 3 miles up the road from the new house, and so we decided to go up there at night because we're playing with these lights that we had installed. And as we drove up, I walked past the front door, and I looked outside, and I go, "What is on the front porch?" Somebody put something on the front porch. So I opened the door. It's pitch dark out there, and it's my kitchen sink is sitting on the front porch, and Amazon delivered it. So nobody was there. They dropped it on the...
They just thought you guys were sleeping.
Smoke. Yeah. Because it's a huge construction site, and they just thought you were sleeping in a building that's still under construction. So
sure.
So anyway, I took a picture of it. I was like, "Hey, we got our kitchen sink," and then I took it inside and locked it up. So, but yeah, I'll send a picture to Jay right now that shows that photo. It's pretty funny.
So now you'll be able to say everything, including the kitchen sink.
That's true. I did kitchen.
So that was
that's officially it's official. Our first the first Amazon delivery, and I think we're hopefully going to be in it sometime the end of October, 1st of November. So I'll be good. I'll have my new shop and all my stuff in the back instead of the little casita here, and we'll get going. So I'll be excited.
Thanksgiving will taste that much better, I'm sure.
Yes, it may. And I'll finally have all my stuff out and, be able to kind of lay it out on the table, see what I have, get back in the building, and.
Right. It's just going to be a pile of, you're going to see this, but it's going to be boxes all behind Mike. All the stuff moved back into his house. Nothing's out, just boxes and boxes. Right.
No, Jay, he's going to stack it up so that it's not in camera view.
Oh,
yes.
Gotcha.
It's going to look like he's done, but he's not really. All the boxes will be out of the camera view.
That I can believe.
Well, we'll see how it works, but and then we'll have to have. Actually, it'll be exciting because, believe it or not, it's almost the end of the year. We're already talking about November, right? November, December, and then January, February. And February is you guys will be back here. So, just about the time we get everything unpacked and ready to go, guess who's coming to town? Go to the Electric Festival, you two guys. So you'll get to see the new place and play with all the really cool high-tech stuff that's been installed in the house. The flooring and AC.
I call dibs on the comfortable bed.
They're both comfortable. They're both comfortable. So, But yeah, the lights that I put in there are they basically are RGB tunable white lights in the whole house, so I can actually make them change colors.
Disco.
And, so the whole house can change. I can play music and they'll bounce with the music.
So all right. So while I'm taking a shower, I can dance to Donna Summer or something.
That's true. You can. And the light will change, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because all the bathtubs, bath showers, all of those have those changeable lights. So it's kind of cool. You can make it like a, what do they call that? A spa. Put a blue light or a green light or a red light or whatever. So
sounds like a lawsuit to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you slip and fall because you can't see anything, or you're
from all the flashing
Hot
lights.
stuff was playing on the radio, and the disco lights were going, and then I fell and slipped.
Yeah, I got a seizure or something.
Seizure City. What are you talking about? Meow, 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 meow.
No doubt. Well, it's funny that you bring up the word lawsuit because Speaking of lawsuits, nothing that had to do with me.
Good segue.
But we were talking. Yeah, it's a good segue. We were talking earlier, and actually, kind of tonight's topic is on this lawsuit that this company sued the FAA over this remote ID. And it's kind of been out there. It's been going on all of 2021, but they're kind of coming to the end of this thing, and the arguments were supposed to have been in September, like September 29th. So now that it's only first part of October, we're interested in hearing exactly what's kind of come out. So we're watching for that. But the company that and this will affect the UAS type, and we know that UAS is kind of the lumped. Everything's lumped into UAS, right? Unmanned systems. But the FAA was sued for illegal remote ID, and this lawsuit outcome will impact UAS policy, UTM, and UAS integration. So the company's name is Race Day Quads, and they actually, believe it or not, back in April of 2021, they sued the FAA saying that they basically have violated several of the amendments. And that certain things are already considered unconstitutional, and the FAA just kind of broadened it up and said, "Here you go." So anyway, I thought I'd throw that out there today because I know we'd been talking about it earlier, and just a quick update. Race Day Quad sued the FAA in early April. They filed arguments on August 4th, 2021. The FAA has to reply to those arguments in writing, which is due September 3rd. And then Race Day Quads will reply to their reply around September 23rd. And then after that, the Department of Justice and Race Day Quads will argue in a court of law in front of a judge, which hopefully will happen this winter. And the ruling is expected in the spring of 2022.
So the back and forthing of the letters already happened.
Correct, and that's kind of why we're bringing it up at this point because we should have. I'm still looking into it, and unfortunately, it's not on the tip of the news cycle, right? So you got to kind of dig through a lot of stuff, and I haven't really had too much luck digging through, live lawsuit, footage. But the outcome of the lawsuit will impact like I said, the UAS policy, UTM, and UAS integration of the national airspace. We're looking for those updates as the lawsuit kind of comes down, But if you don't know what the lawsuit's about, the argument alleges that tracking and recording GPS violates the Fourth Amendment.
Fourth Amendment.
Mm-hmm. And then the lawsuit cites Carpenter versus United States and asserts that remote ID is more intrusive than the technology already recognized as unconstitutional. And then I think there's one more that says the argument alleges that the concept of FRIAs create a forced association with a private dues-collecting organization to exercise privilege in the public airspace, and this suit argues that it's a violation of the First Amendment. And then I think the last one is that it alleges a private entity being able to access public services, a violation of the Fifth Amendment. So there's several amendments in there that they're quoting, and I know that when you go up against the government and you're citing that they're violating some sort of an amendment, a lot of times the courts look at that. They look at that very seriously because the government's the one that set the amendments, and now they're violating what they said. This is the amendment you get as a citizen. Oh, now we're violating it. And several times, I think looking back, Jay, you would know more than me, but when they went to court over the burning of the American flag, that was something that, they said, yeah, that violates the First Amendment. And the court sided with the plaintiff in that fact, saying, yes, that is a First Amendment right. So,
right, because it's an expression, right?
Correct. And so hopefully this, we're talking about this because the FAA is trying to regulate non-navigatable airspace, which is anything below, I think Mike and I were talking about earlier, anything below the tree line. So if you live in Massachusetts or Boston or somewhere and you're flying a quad or a park flyer and you're in your backyard and your trees are 75 feet tall all the way around your property and you're flying inside those trees, how is that navigatable? How does the FAA actually even have the ability to say you cannot fly in this space, right? And then on top of that, we want to know, so you have to have GPS reporting capability while you're flying in your backyard. Oh, and by the way, you cannot submit your backyard as a flyable space and create a FRIA in your backyard. They don't allow that.
Even if you have 10 acres.
I could have 100 acres and it wouldn't matter. Unless I created a club or whatever, in Jay's case.
Ridiculous.
So it's one of those things that, it is somewhat ridiculous, but it's interesting because this lawsuit will definitely take, a little bit of time, and hopefully we'll hear something. But I'm hoping that eventually they will prevail, and then all this kind of rigmarole will go away because we still don't have remote ID technology as of this moment of this recording. Anyway,
why not ADBES?
ASB or AD?
Whatever. Yeah.
Once again, that technology is out there for real airplanes, but that technology is about 3 times the size of my airplane. So, my foamy. I can't put that particular unit on my foamy. It has to have a GPS antenna. It has to have a WAAS antenna. It has to have all this stuff that pretty much weighs more than the 55 or 65 grams, that my foam park flyer has. So it's just kind of very difficult. But I do know. What's that?
Hey, Z Mike, let me ask you a question. So when there's a regular rule change with the FAA, right? They decide, I don't know, they're bringing in a new navigable device, or maybe back when they first brought up GPS and they were allowing it to be flown on planes or using the planes could use it for navigation. What's that process normally look like? They have to go. This is where Congress gets involved, and they sit and they legislate and they look over the rules, and a few years cook by as they go over everything. And in this case, that didn't have the normal practice of how they normally decide these things has not happened, right? They just skirted that, and the FAA is just saying, hey, here's a new rule we propose. And it's never gone through the proper lawmakers is what it just seems to me. Is that what's happening here?
So you're talking about two different sides of the coin, right? The one side that you brought up at the very beginning is GPS navigation. And so the FAA set aside basically in their Airman's Information Manual and said, okay, look, this is our navigation section and this is what's available to navigate. Back in the day, it was some guy with a flashlight, right?
Right.
And then in today's world, then it jumped to what they call a LORAN, which was ground-based stations that were giving lat long, then a VOR and then GPS. So technology changes, but what the FAA says is that this is navigation, right? So Congress has set aside the ability for the FAA to say what is legal navigation, okay? They don't have to go to Congress for that because the technology and the way that we navigate aircraft has just been upgraded. So the rules are still the same. The airspace rules are the same, right? And then they several years ago, many years ago, actually, not several, but many years ago, they reclassified the airspace that you could fly in, and they gave it different numbers. Instead of being all these weird acronyms, they made it basically A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So they kind of went down the alphabet and said, okay, A space is anything above 18,000. B is in the class Bravo. That's Phoenix or Dallas or New York or somewhere, Chicago. And then, they kind of narrowed it down to these little spots. They just changed the nomenclature. They had already been approved for all of that stuff. It was still in the Airman's Information Manual, but they did not, have to go to Congress and say, hey, can you legislate or can you help us pass this new legislation, right?
Well, and having just learned about airspace, you make it sound so simple.
Mm-hmm.
It really isn't that simple. I
Well,
mean, it is for you. It is for you because you fly it every day. But I mean, it's not that simple. There's a lot of exceptions. It's cranky. It's very cranky.
It can be cranky if you're not used to it. But trust me, Mike, if I sat down with you for 5 minutes, I could.
Oh, I know you could.
Give you how to basically navigate yourself through from G to A. And
sure.
I wrote it down and said, okay, remember it this way, because I teach new students to do that as well, and so they have to remember that, and it's just an easy way to remember it. And once they kind of get used to why it is, then it makes more sense, to go from G to A. But you are correct. For someone that's not used to it or doesn't understand that navigational airspace or the difference in types of airspace, it can be a little cluttered. So if you just opened the book and started reading, wait, Bravo, Charlie, what is this Delta space? What's Echo space? What's Alpha space? And what are the requirements to be in there? It is a little bit, kind of convoluted. So I just have a method to make it a little more simple if you started from the ground all the way up to the, 65,000. So, but to go to Jay's other point is that when you try to change, when you try to add something to the rules that already exist, right? That's when you cross the line, because the FAA has a set of rules that basically I have a manual that I gave you, right? And it's called the Airman's Information Manual. Congress has approved all that and said, yep, we think that's great, right? Because they're the overseer of all of the government entities, just like if you're going to add tax code to the tax.
Exactly.
You have to go to Congress and say, hey, we want to tax people on this. And so you have to go in and add it. So if they're going to make a change, and ADSB, to Mike's point, was one of those changes, because that's an air surveillance broadcast system. That's what ADSB stands for. And that was a new technology that they were bringing out that was supposedly going to make everything safer. And it took them basically about 5 years to implement and get Congress to sign off on this new technology that's coming in and how it's going to make everything safer. They did this whole, years worth of sending information out, promising. They made all these promises that Congress said, okay, if we agree to this, you're not going to punish anybody for it. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. And they said, no. This is all based on safety. What it's going to do is it's going to allow that guy to talk to this guy and this guy to talk to that guy and all of them to talk to me, and then we can talk to the FAA, can monitor all of it, and we can see where everybody's at. It's cool. And, it's going to make everything so much safer, because now you won't have air collisions, because they know where you are and you know where they are. Yeah, guess what happened last Saturday? We had a mid-air collision here in Chandler, Arizona. Helicopter.
Mid-air collision?
Yep, helicopter and an airplane collided in the pattern at a towered airport.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the helicopter didn't make it. The airplane was a low wing. It did make it. It landed. It had some severe damage to the airplane. Obviously, the propellers, kind of ripped the landing gear to pieces. But unfortunately, the two, both of them had students. Both of them were instructors. Both of them were highly qualified. Had been doing it for some time. Unfortunately, the two in the helicopter did not make it, because it just, it ripped the rotors off. And if you fly helicopters or even RC stuff, that's not a good thing. So all of this talk about ADSB, and we still had an accident. So you can stand up and say all of this remote ID, all of this ADS-B, everything that's going to make this safer, and you're still, right? You're going into this, in my eyes, the FAA went into it going, hey, look, we want to get rid of this aircraft accident stuff. So if we create this technology, we will get away with that. No, you're not. It's going to happen. That's why it's called an accident, right? You're still responsible, and the FAA will not tell you that just because you have ADS-B does not release you from your responsibility of maintaining visual separation from other aircraft.
Right.
You're still responsible. So, they're going to look at this and say, okay, who was in the wrong? Somebody was in the wrong place at the right time. Maybe nobody was at fault and they just happened to be at the same spot at the same time. But we don't know. So now we found out after this has all been implemented, right, because they gave us 3 years to implement ADS-B. 3 years. Once it got passed. The remote ID stuff was 90 days, 100 days, something like that. And then they said, bam, okay, everybody's good to go. So it just got accelerated because they were doing it on their own. And they figured out ways to say, well, look, we're regulating this airspace that's below 400 feet because, those are RC airplanes, drones, they could hurt a big airplane, which still has yet to be proven. I mean, we don't have any.
I don't think we need to rehash that argument. I mean, that's.
We don't, and I mean, others. You can go back in our podcast and listen to that one. But I think that there's, once again, I think that there's this move towards safety. We talked about the RC, the AC circular coming out. There was a big article on the AMA put out in regards to that. If you haven't read it, I suggest you go do it. And they had a lot of the same questions that we did. And, I don't know. It's one of those things because it's hard for me because I sit on both sides, right? I do this professionally, and it makes a lot more sense to me why ADS-B is there and how much more safe it should be. But then, we find out that somebody flew under a bridge and she gets her license revoked. Somebody flew over a national park and they got fined. It's being used by other, entities to be restrictive and punitive. And then at the same time, we're looking at this, remote ID stuff going, it's just to make things safer, right? Everything done in that safety verbiage is supposed to be good for us. But in reality, it never makes it safer. It only makes it, Well,
I mean, I think a perfect example of what you're talking about, Mike, is just GPS on your phones. GPS on your phone is great because it tells you where you are. You can use, you can use some map tool that would get you from here to there, and you can know. Man, I love that because now I don't care if I turn wrong anymore. I just turn on the map tool, and I can get back to someplace reasonable and find my way. Right. Except for every day now, there are requests to different companies like Google and whoever else by the government asking for placement of people.
All right.
And I don't get to know about it until it becomes a court case. And even then, I might not be able to know about it. And so it's just the same, to me, it's the same kind of thing that you were just saying about ADS-B, how it was designed for this very cool and very good idea. And then, of course, somebody has to go and bend it.
Well, isn't it the same thing like in Australia? They're basically saying they're going to use people's phones. And if you're supposed to be at home, you're supposed to be working from home or be home, and they see that you're at the supermarket or you're somewhere you're not supposed to be, or they go, hey, Mike Moan's at the beach. Mm-hmm. Hey, we noticed that on this date you were at the beach and you should have. Everybody was quarantined. Why were you at the beach? And they're using it as a tool for safety, everybody's safety, because of you can get the COVIDs if you go outside. And you're around people, or you're, hey, we saw that you were around 35 people on this street corner because we noticed the other 35 people, and we're going to bring a lawsuit against you folks. But it's all in the thing of safety in order to keep the numbers down. And so I've heard about them doing stuff like that. I've heard about them also using it to, now you're supposed to keep your records on your phone so that they can access them if you want to go to the store. Let's say you want to go to the pharmacy or go to the HEB or wherever, and before you can go in the store, they can scan your phone and see if you've had your records, or if they can see if you've been to the hospital to get your shots or wherever. To me, that's, great. It sounds great to be safe, but to me that's just a massive invasion of your privacy, because, your phone's just giving this information out.
And aside from all the different things that we're talking about, the thing that I bring this back around to is I've got to spend all this mental capacity talking about what the government should or shouldn't do, and I just want to fly my plane.
Right.
I don't care 2 cents about what they think or whatever. Really, I mean, when it gets right down to it, I just want to fly my plane, and frankly, it makes it harder to want to go out, knowing that there's going to be somebody like you or me is going to be out there watching me to make sure I'm following these rules that they've created that we don't even know are legal at this point. And so now I'm being watched by people. Well, do you have your AMA number on your plane? No. Well, aren't you supposed to? Maybe. I think so, but I didn't put it on there. Well, who's the airplane police? Are you the airplane police?
Right.
I mean, are you? No.
Well, I get what you're saying, and for me, the problem is that we were just at my wife and I had a birthday party for a 5-year-old friend of the family, and we went to the store, obviously, and we were looking for gifts for a 5-year-old, and so we're on naturally I gravitated to the RC side, and I'm looking at monster trucks and little air hog, airplanes, and sure enough, they had about a 22 size helicopter sitting right there on the shelf.
Wow.
And of course I'm not buying that for a 5-year-old, but right. I pointed to my wife and I went, this here entails, is the problem that we're running into, because how many of the people in that store are familiar as we are of what's going on?
Zero.
Zero. Yeah.
Agreed. Maybe they are. Maybe they heard it somewhere down the line. But what's going to happen is Grandma and Grandpa, who are not privy to this information, are going to come in there at the birthday party and go, man, that's a really good thing for Johnny. Little Johnny would love this thing. And they're going to pull it off, and they're going to go spend $59, and they're going to put it through the register, and he's going to go home, and he's going to fire the thing up, and he's going to fly it around in his front yard, right? And by doing that, he's violating federal rules.
You.
Right. And so now, just as the guy does it, right, the police comes by and whoever that may be, right, local law enforcement or some sort of a person assigned by the FAA to be the police, whatever you want to call that guy, the drone police. And
the drone police.
Because they could do that, right? They could create an arm of the FAA that is an enforcement arm. They're not supposed to, but they could. Or they could, solicit.
Maybe the music group, the police, will come and do it.
Could be. And now, Grandma and Grandpa had no idea. They didn't really look into it. They just bought it as a gift, and it's on the shelf.
Now his dad's in federal prison because he's facing federal charges. Federal charges at least.
Federal charges at least. So
well, and who knows what his contract to his employer says?
Yeah.
How that might impact him as well.
Yeah, and all over a birthday gift, right?
So, right, exactly.
We're
making some leaps and we're making some assumptions, but at the same time,
but the assumptions
sure seems
are
possible.
Too far away because
exactly.
that those assumptions were made way back, probably 6 years ago when the ADS-B guys came out, and everybody was having the same conversation, right? Oh, this is bad. This is bad. The FAA is going to use this as a enforcement arm. No. This is new technology, and you had both sides of the coin, right? You had all these younger guys that were like, "Oh, this is going to be the greatest thing ever," and these fight schools that were like, "Oh my gosh, now we're not going to have to worry about, this really packed tight airspace." As a result, here we are, a year. I think you had to have it in 2020, right? In December of 2019, your airplane had to have it. So you could not fly January 1 of 2020 if you didn't have ADS-B. We are only 1 year from that date, actually almost 2 years from that date, and we're already finding enforcement action based on this technology. So I'm I'm the positive side, meaning that, yeah, there's probably some good that's going to come out of it, because there has been really important changes, and in the real airline or in the aircraft world, it is really cool to be able to see everybody else from where they are. But at the same time, we actually questioned whether this was going to happen, and now here it is. This was much faster. I don't suspect it'll be 2 years before somebody is getting in trouble.
I totally agree.
Based on this, because things have a tendency to accelerate, right? They already found out. Now they're like, oh, hey, the little guy like me or you or Jay, I don't have the resources to fight the U.S.
Well, and you're not going to fight anyway, Mike, because you're a pilot.
Right. You're part of the man.
Yeah,
but
I mean, does it make sense for you to fight? Because you're going to totally be raked over the coals if that happens.
Correct. But I'm just saying that Grandma and Grandpa and little Johnny, who's just down the road, is fine in his front yard. He's not able to fight the government. So when the government swings that big heavy arm and comes down on the table and says, "Hey, you're guilty," what does he do? Right? It's going to require somebody like the drone company that has a huge multi-billion-dollar stake in the industry that says, wait a second, this is definitely going to affect our business. It's going to affect how we, regulate our business on our own, and it could cause some serious waves in this industry. It could take RC airplanes totally off the shelf if the manufacturer said, yeah, we're not gonna comply. The FAA could basically say, hey, you can't import those anymore.
Right.
And none of that stuff. I mean, with the exception of a few things. RC
go back to making
we're going to give him a shout out. RC Cores makes his stuff here, right? But some of the larger manufacturers, we won't mention them, but they've got factories overseas in Taiwan.
Mike Barcelou, model planes. I mean, he's a big manufacturer.
Right. So it's gonna. I'm hoping that I see favorable outcome from the lawsuit, and I hope it doesn't destroy this whole process. But at the same time, I think there needs to be some serious adjustment, because a lot of the things I think Jay and I talked about last time, that this whole FRIA thing, it's up to them whether they agree to it or not. And they could say that, yeah, you can do it this week, but next week you can't.
Yeah. That's totally wrong.
Well, it's always in little increments, right? You don't boil a frog by sticking him in hot water, right? Turn up the water. Right?
Yeah, you put him in a cold water bucket and turn up the heat. So
yeah,
he'll swim around thinking he's in a jacuzzi for a while. So look at all the bubbles.
Yeah, look at all the bubbles.
But I don't know. I think that ultimately, I want to be optimistic that ultimately this will work itself out. I really do.
Well, I want to be optimistic too.
But my fear,
I just find that it's really hard to be in this environment.
And my fear is that I look at my shop. I mean, I'm literally building a new house just so I could have a bigger shop for RC stuff, and I look at all.
That's the only reason. There's no other reason at all.
I'm just using that as a crutch, right?
I got it. Okay.
Because I'm excited about it. But
we won't tell your wife about that. But that's the only reason that she got that new house.
That's right. Okay. No, there were several reasons, but I look at Jay. You can see in the background of Jay's house, between the two of us or three of us, I mean, we've got quite a substantial amount of money tied up in the RC world, and I hate for someone to just be able to go, it's like gone tomorrow. Sorry. And then what's your stuff worth, right? Who's going to buy it? Right now you can buy and sell stuff and trade stuff and, give it away or do whatever, and it'll all be gone. It'll literally be, in my case, oodles and goodles of money thrown in.
I don't really have to worry about that, I don't think, for the paramotor stuff, because I've talked to a bunch of people. You go through life and you meet people, and you talk about hobbies, and paramotor comes up, and a good many of them just sort of opt out. I'd never do that. Like, I hear that probably 7 out of 10 times. I could never do that. I would never do it. but there's still significant numbers. It's like, that sounds interesting. And then one or two is like, yeah, where do I sign up? I mean, do you have the paperwork, or do I have to go get somebody else to get it? And so I guess, we have a lot of people in America at least, and I'm sure that other countries do this as well. That makes sense. It might become a bigger set of people, but in the end, I think that it's just like regular GA airplanes. You don't have a lot of people because it takes money, a good amount of money for that particular hobby to be a hobby. Well, you got a couple $100,000 just to step into that space,
right? And that's why I think it filters down, right? I mean, if we had, over a 31-year career, if I had a dollar for every time somebody that I was in the cockpit with said, "Oh man, I love RC stuff. I learned that when I was a kid. That's what made me become a pilot." And I mean, I could have retired by now, because it would have been a lot of dollars. There's astronauts and there's engineers at NASA, and there's engineers at Northrop or Boeing or whatever that learned to fly airplanes, and it was intriguing. We actually have a high school here called EVIT. It's engineering something and technology school, but anyway, it's a high school that's dedicated to specific technological entities, and RC flying is one of them. And they have a good time over there. They fly RC stuff. They move into flying real airplanes because of it. A lot of military guys learn to fly RC airplanes when they were young kids, and that's kind of what sparks that interest. And I hate to see Big Brother just crush all that, because then what do you do? I mean, we're about to become everybody thought COVID was going to take care of the pilot shortage, and it just made it worse because we had guys that retired. And all of a sudden, flying public, was like, "Oh, hey, COVID's over, or we're tired of being locked up. We're going." And I think I got noticed the other day that the TSA said that the amount of travelers in 2021, in September 2021 or August of 2021, exceeded the travel in 2019. They had more passengers before COVID. They had more passengers after COVID than they did before COVID.
I just all the fight matches that we get to see.
But that would have been expected, right? Over those many years, though, what's the percentage increase? I mean, they were, the idea here is that COVID's going to stop people from traveling at all. And I say to you that's just, we're now back to normal, and that increase is probably the normal increase of what it would have been had there been no COVID at all.
Yeah, that may have been the case, and we just had a year of kind of, everybody kind of just treading water. But I don't disagree with that. I mean, and I don't know the percentage of increase of travel year over year, but it's based on population, right? So if you get a bigger population, they're going to start traveling more, and it depends on the economics behind it as well. I was talking to a guy the other day. Kind of off topic, but airline related. I guess in 1952, I think that's when it was. In 1952, there was the first jet service from JFK to London on a jetliner. Most of the time before that, it was all on a turboprop, and they had to stop, in Shannon, Ireland, or whatever to get over to London. Well, now it's a jet. It flies over and it lands in London. In 1952, the ticket was $365.
Holy smokes.
One way in 1952. Just last week, a ticket from JFK to London was $360 round trip, and that's adjusted for inflation.
Wow.
So it actually went down, the cost of travel from 1952 till today, even more, because in half would have just been, $365, but that's a round trip ticket over a course of so many years, adjusted for the inflated price. So it's interesting, that's kind of working that way. But I think RC is the same way, right? I mean, Jay and I have had this conversation about the turbine world, and the turbine world was one of those worlds where there was a very, very few guys that had turbines. I mean, very few. If you could afford to spend $30,000-$40,000 on a turbine aircraft, you're in a very different income bracket than the majority of the people in the U.S. And now look, we're going to best in the West, which you probably, if you look 19 years ago when they first, or however many, I think they're in their 18th year, even 15 years ago or 5 years ago, there was probably 20 guys, 30 guys that would show up to this event. Now you're looking at over 100. That just goes, and if you look at what a turbine costs, there's a company out there called, I just had a brain hemorrhage.
The Schwing?
No, it's the Aerofoam, and they're creating a new airplane, the L-39. It's a little bit bigger than our Motion RC ones, and heck, I know guys that have converted their Motion RC airplanes to turbines because they make a little 65, turbine, and it drops right into that thing, and now all of a sudden somebody buys a $300 foam airplane, puts another, $1,100, $1,200 turbine in it, and they're out flying jets. They're flying turbine jets. Now they got to get a waiver for it, but it doesn't take long. If they've been flying it as an EDF, the turbine stuff just takes a little bit to kind of get used to, the spool up times. But the airplane flies the same, albeit a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So, but I'm just saying that as technology increases, the prices come down, you're going to have a larger group, which is what your point is in the air, in the travel, and when everybody's traveling. And I'm just relating it to the RC. I think the RC world is getting bigger because technology is coming to the point where you can go to the RC, hobby shop and buy an airplane that you can fly this afternoon.
Well, and has a gyro, or
right.
Correction, some sort of mechanism in it.
Safe flight or whatever.
Yeah, safe flight or whatever. And just think how
think
how wonderful that is, and it all costs under $150.
So I'm going to change the conversation just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with Jay a little bit, and I was telling him that I don't want people to feel bad for me because it's on me, but I feel jealous of you two guys, and I'm jealous because you have a weekly get together with the guys that you could go to at the park, and Jay has his own flying field that he can bring or expel anybody he wants, and then Mike goes to the other place where he can fly his jets, which is cool. So I don't really have that community, and I think I see that when I go to see Doug or other people who have those parks. It's cool, and these guys get together and they build planes and they do interesting things in terms of what they're doing with their planes, the changes they're making. You can see that stuff on Facebook. It's out there all day long. Sure. Except for not today because Facebook was crashed solidly for a couple hours. But in fact, I don't know what people were doing for a couple hours there today. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of bring that up because I feel like that it's that. There's the thing that you talked about, Mike, about people going for STEM reasons or for just engaging. But there's that piece that we don't really talk about too much. But every person in RC knows, or at least the ones that I meet in clubs, is the community piece.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of camaraderie that's I have actually literally both gone to the park and to the field and out to fly turbines without taking a single airplane, just to hang with the guys, just to be there to meet them and hang out with them and swap stories and watch them fly. I mean it's really fun to take your own airplane, but it's also fun just to go to hang out with the guys because it's a good group of guys.
I mean, that comes clear when we go to the Arizona Electric Festival.
Electric Fest, right? Or Holly Springs, or San Antonio Club.
But I mean, certainly at AEF, right? Because it's a 3-day thing that we all go to, and we watch people come in. They had that going guy from Germany one year. Yep. I mean, people coming from all over the place to go to AEF, and then you can walk up to any one of them and say, "Hey, that looks really cool. What did you do?" And they don't go, "Hey, kid, get out of here."
Right. You don't even hear that, right?
Almost every one of them, every one of them. You might hear, "Hey, kid, don't step on that." Right.
But please don't sit on it. Don't try to ride it. I know it's big, but don't try to ride it.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, almost every one of them to a T would just as soon open the guts up for you and show you everything inside. What he did, how he did it, why, what he used for glue, how many times he's crashed it, whatever, all that stuff, right?
And I think that's with every part of the hobby too, right? I mean, we've had Scott
on, even 3D printing, right? You got 3D Aero Ventures doing their stuff, and he's been real open about what he did and how he did it, and really sharing some of the things that he's doing. He's done a great job of building the designs that he's done. I think just a lot of awesome stuff comes out of it, and even you see some of the organizations talk about paramotoring and stuff like that, just flight in general. But again, I just want to focus on community piece of it.
Right.
So all this stuff we've been talking about not only impacts the hobby from a standpoint of can I do it, but from a standpoint of, hey, you're breaking communities too.
Yeah, I can see that. That is a good point. Yeah. And maybe that'll come out in the lawsuit, because that's one of the things that the drone company brought up is that, they do a lot of televised, that the drone racing world has gotten.
It's a sport.
Huge. You're right. It's a sport. It's on ESPN. It's on.
In fact, I would be surprised if we don't see it in the Olympics in the next 4 or 8. I'm serious about that.
I totally understand that. You're right.
Because I have sat behind the goggles to try to watch these guys fly. It does take a certain skill to be able to do that stuff.
Didn't they put rock climbing in this year's Olympics?
Yes.
Isn't that an Olympic sport?
That's possible. Yeah, I don't know.
And rock climbing was a sport, right? That wasn't like an Olympic sport. That was just a regular sport. But then they did that speed climb, and they did all this other stuff. So I don't disregard the fact that could be an Olympic event at some point in the future.
Sure.
So
I'll just talk about. I mean, I would say community. They're breaking community. I mean,
that's
where the rubber hits the road here. You can talk about all the safety stuff that you want, but you're breaking things. Like you said, STEM progression and also community. So those two things for me are the biggest things.
And hopefully they'll bring that up, right? I mean, I think that if a judge was sitting there and heard that they were basically killing a $4 billion a year industry.
Just because.
Just because they wanted to control the level below the tree, right? I mean, they don't want you flying in your backyard below your tree line. That's illegal now. According to them. So I think at some point they're going to have to say, well, flying in your backyard, come on. How do you regulate that?
That's like saying I can't toss the ball with my kid because, we're throwing the ball into navigable airspace, son. Sorry, we can't do that.
You know what's really interesting to me, though, after all of this? Where's the Estes rocket guys in all these? Nobody.
I think I mentioned that in one of our last podcasts when I was talking about.
They're quietly launching their rockets, Mike.
There you go. I mean, I've been out at the park where we fly.
What is that, 2 seconds? It doesn't stay in the space very long, so it's not like,
But it still doesn't matter. I mean, it's the same thing.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I agree that it penetrates the space we're talking about here, but we are talking about a different magnitude. We're not talking about as many, and we're not talking about as long. And those two things right alone, that alone will stop that from being an issue because there's not enough heft.
But there's more. There's going to be more rules put upon the RC world than there is on the paramotor world. And I'd be much more afraid to run into a paramotor.
I need you to stop saying that, Jay. I need you to stop saying that, Jay.
Well, you keep bringing it up. I'm sorry. If I'm going down, your hobby's going down.
Did I ever bring up the paramotor rules? Never did I bring up the paramotor rules. Ever.
Because there are no rules. That's what I love about your hobby. There are no rules. You strap your lawnmower in your back and you grab your sheet. You just jump off a cliff. I love it. That's what you guys want to do. Knock yourselves out.
How can you regulate tying a bunch of balloons to your lawn chair? I don't understand with a lawnmower in the back. We're just poking fun.
I know.
But going back to that though, if you think about it, one of the things that that drove this was this whole drones taking down airliners kind of thing. Right. Yeah. They were like, oh my gosh, if it runs into something like that, then, you could take down an airliner. Well, now you're creating legislation that's going to create these little GPS units that basically can tell you where this item is at all times. how hard is it once that technology comes out to now change it to where it can track, right, GPS track another item? Because we're already to that point with ADS-B. I mean, literally, if my airplane's over here and there's an ADS-B over here, I can track it. I can fly right to the guy. So if I have that technology, how hard is it now to put it in an Estes rocket where if somebody's up there, I can launch that thing from my backyard and it can track, which is no different than a missile coming off of a rail,
Yeah.
In a military. And I can pack it full of, whatever I want. So I guess my point is that if you're going to tell me that you can pack a C4 on a quad and land it on, an airplane wing and blow the airplane up or whatever the case may be,
where's Mythbusters when you need them? I mean, those guys, they would probably figure out a way to buy a jet airliner and then try to drive a drone into it just to see what would happen,
Yeah, because they wound up with a 747 blowing cars off the road, right? They did that. So I'm sure they could probably find that.
My brother was running the airport when that happened.
Yeah. And actually, I think there's a video on one of our last podcasts, or at least we talked about the video where they flew that, or maybe it was on our Facebook page, where some company flew a drone into an airplane. Don't you remember that, Jay?
No, I don't remember.
Something. I remember maybe I remembered, or I sent it to you guys just as a, hey, look at this.
So they actually had an airplane that was sitting still. I think the engines were turning on it maybe, and they actually flew a quad into the side of the airplane to see how much damage it would do. But
I mean, I think the damage it could do would be to the turbine, right? I mean, because if it gets into the intake, you think it would just spit it back out? Wouldn't hurt any fins?
It would shred it like a meat.
Yeah, but it wouldn't hurt any of the fins? You don't think it would ruin any of the fins?
No, it would hurt the fins, but it's no different than taking a brown Pelican through the same motor. I mean, I heard all the blades in that thing too, but the airplane didn't come down. It still flew, and I still landed, and it smelled like chicken, but... Well, the whole airplane, you cook the bird. I mean,
no offense, brown pelicans. We don't think you're chickens. Just want to, in case you're watching.
But I'm just saying that, I sucked one right through a motor, and, you look at
good old Larry.
It was done with, with Sully's airplane going into the Hudson there, and, he sucked down a whole, flock of geese. And, it did do a lot of damage. The airplanes were still, the engines were still turning. They just weren't producing enough thrust to keep the airplane airborne. So I think it would take a lot more. I mean, I've hit a ton of birds in my career, not purposefully, but it just happens that that's part of the dangers of flying airplanes. Is that you kind of hit birds, and
birds come through
all birds, and I've hit big birds.
I think we should put ADS-B on all birds.
Yeah,
that would be helpful.
Good luck with
10 billion of them or something. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of research with the what they call it, the chicken cannon or whatever. I remember when I was working my safety job, there was we had nothing but videos and all sorts of research on the different angles the birds were hitting them at. Chickens, turkeys, frozen chickens, turkeys. They were firing up different planes, different parts of the plane, into the windshields, everything, just to see the kind of damage that they would do. So
as long as my plane isn't as heavy as a chicken, I should be good to go.
Should be.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, yeah, it could be. It can be as heavy as
28-pound turkey.
It could be. Yeah. You never know. I mean, it's one of those things that I think there needs to be more research done. I think there needs to be, some logic put behind this,
right.
and maybe we're the ones that do it. Maybe it's the lawsuits the one to do it. If you get a judge involved, maybe they'll start listening. But we'll have to just keep an eye on it. And unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. So,
which one?
Just the industry, the way it's growing.
This eye or this eye?
Oh, I see. Which eye do you want me to keep?
Which one? Yeah.
I got you. Well, unfortunately, our hour is up. Anytime we get talking about something controversial, it always seems like the time just zips by. But I do appreciate your input. And if you have a different input or if you have a different take on it, then jump on our Facebook listeners group.
Hopefully it'll be working.
Yeah, hopefully it is working. And post something for us to read. We'd love to hear from our listeners. If you got some time, send us an email at parkfirepodcast@gmail.com. Or if you'd like if you would like to leave us a voicemail and you're not telling me that my warranty is expired, you can call 830-4943. 3 or 4 phone messages just yesterday or day before, and it was all warranty. I think they've got our number.
Was your car safe? I mean, if you called her back. If you called her back.
Yeah, I didn't. So.
I didn't.
So anyway, yeah, 830-444-4943. And actually, run over to our sponsors page as well, rcbatteriesusa.com, and grab some A-Power batteries. And if you haven't already, check out the 3D Aero Ventures website. I think you'll be surprised at some of the new stuff that he's putting on there as well.
He's always doing something, that guy.
Always. He's got some new stuff for sale, and he's got some other stuff that I think is gratis. So
hey, we'll have to talk about this next time, but thanks for showing me about the race wolf fun.
Oh, that's right. We did talk about that last time, right?
Yeah. I mean, I took a look at it. It did have 2600s, not 2200s, which is what I normally fly. But I would fly a 2200 and not worry about it, because I don't think I would fly as fast as those guys were flying it, because I'm just too chicken. But I like flying it, and I liked how the video had them launching it upside down. So that's also awesome.
Yeah. That is pretty awesome. Well, good. Well, we'll have to maybe Christmas is coming up. Maybe Jay and I can figure something out. Direction.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for this week. We appreciate you joining us on the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona.
I'm Jay from the hills of Texas.
And I'm AK Mike in Texas.
I think we had a delay there. All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.